Welcome to 10200, the Media and Politics podcast. We are now in our campaign season where we are taking aim at the electoral kind of situation, looking at different issues and policies, hopefully talking to some politicians, activists, and the like, and bringing you all the updates about what's happening and what you should be voting for. I'm joined by two spokespeople from Anti-War Aotearoa this evening to talk about a story or an investigation regarding the New Zealand Super Fund, which was actually pretty shocking to me, even though we already knew some of the bad investments that the fund got up to. Yeah, this was a bit of a darker shift, I think. I'm joined by Gabriella and Eugene. Gabriella, do you want to give yourself a quick intro so our audience kind of knows where you're coming from and your kaupapa?
Yeah, kia ora, ko Gabriella, makarita hine tu Brayne ahau, he uriti nei no Ngāti Maniapoto me Hamoa. Kia ora everyone, I'm Gabriella. I'm speaking on this podcast tonight as a representative and spokesperson for Anti-War Aotearoa, which we have previously spoken on this podcast before, but for new listeners, we're a newly formed kaupapa that has been initiated in response to the illegal war on Iran, but also takes a very strong stance against New Zealand's involvement and complicity in all illegal wars of aggression, war crimes, the genocide in Gaza, and so on. So that's me. I come from West Auckland. I'm a lawyer is my day trade. Not too sure what else to mention there,
No, that's all good.
Good to be on this kaupapa again tonight.
Kia ora, and Eugene.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Eugene Doyle. Yes, I host solidarity.co.nz and I'm one of the team at AWA. And yeah, I mean, what Gabriella was saying, you know, it's the Iran war, but it's all those wars of aggression in Lebanon and the West Bank and Yemen and you know, right throughout the Middle East. And of course, you know, I caught up last week with the ambassador for Cuba here in Wellington, where I'm based. And, you know, we should all be deeply concerned about this because we're living in an age where America is increasingly, always has been, but they're increasingly turning to hard power to actually get their way, and people of good conscience needs to stand up against that. And so that's what ours was all about.
Yeah, and as you've both kind of alluded to, it's not just one war or one conflict, right? And especially at this point in history, it seems that there are multiple fronts. There are multiple places where US is engaging in illegal wars, other forms of atrocity, empowering their allies to do the same. And alongside that, Western countries like our own are providing cover and complicity to allow them to operate without any real pushback. And that's one of the things that we're going to discuss tonight. So I think it was late last week, there's a story in Stuff from Isaac Davison about the New Zealand Super Fund and the way that it was choosing to invest, you know, the money that is put into it to grow the superannuation fund to pay out superannuation to people who reach the pension age here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. There'd been some previous concerns about its investment in organizations or corporations that were engaging in business in the West Bank, I believe, so illegally. And we really shouldn't have been investing in those at a state level. I don't think anything's really been done about that as yet. There was a challenge to it. It was found that some of the rules have been changed to make it a little bit easier for them to get away with these kind of investments. And then it's turned out that they're also investing in Palantir Technologies, which is, I would argue, probably at the forefront of just broadly really evil corporations, especially in the military-industrial complex, and especially and specifically in regards to the atrocities in Iran and in Gaza. Gabrielle, I know that you were doing some of the work with people who brought this to Anti-War Aotearoa to start with, as a story, as an investigation. How do you even find out something like this? And
Oh,
what
yeah,
kind
it was
of triggered
noted
it
very
all?
publicly on the Superfund website. So they, on an annual basis, list their investments
Mhm.
as part of a public disclosure spreadsheet. So you can basically go onto the Superfund website and access access the most recent spreadsheet online. You can Control F, search Palantir, and it pops up with over $140 million of the super fund shares being invested in that particular company. And I
Oh,
know Eugene has done some further digging into that particular spreadsheet, but it appears that they have quite disturbing investments in military technology and arms investments that are directly linked to recent heinous war crimes and the genocide in Gaza across their portfolio.
Hey, one of the things that really triggered me was the fact that I heard people, there's obviously been a few stories around that. Hey, the New Zealand super fund is doing really well. We're one of the highest performing super funds in the world. Isn't that just tickety-boo? And it was a bit disturbing when you sort of drilled into it and you realized that New Zealand's super fund, so what funds our superannuation, is up to its eyeballs in the key tech companies and military hardware companies that have been involved in all the genocide in Gaza, the war in Iran, etc. So, yeah, we decided to focus in on Palantir technology. And just in case anyone, I'm sure most people know Palantir, but yeah, it's owned by Peter Thiel, who, thanks to John Key, is a New Zealand citizen. His CEO's a strange and evil man called Alex Karp. And what the company is, it's sort of, sometimes it's a bit hard to get your head around it, but they're basically a big data analytics company, AI infrastructure, and they integrate their intelligence programs into other intelligence programs. So, so for example, they work very closely with the crowd in Israel, part of the cyber warfare unit 8200. And so they integrate with them. They integrate with the US, and their biggest client is the US Department of War, formerly known as the Department of Defense. And they've been deeply involved in major war crimes. So, yeah, the pager attacks is actually an example. The Unit 8200 was one of the key drivers with the help of people like Palantir and those pager attacks on Hezbollah. They do these really nasty things. They help with the creating hit lists for the Israeli military. So they crunch a whole bunch of data. They'll pull in cell phone data. They'll pull in research they have on people. They'll pull in facial recognition, all sorts of things. And then working with the military, whether that's the US military, the IDF, or others, they then compile the hit lists, and then at the appropriate moment, they'll be able to automatically say, that guy there, that journalist, that doctor, that Hamas fighter, whoever they're after, they've just got home, and it's almost fully automated, minimal human intervention. A missile strike will go in and will take out entire families. And they've done this thousands of times in Gaza. They did it repeatedly in Iran. And according to IDF, people have spoken to Israeli media. They deliberately, as a preference, target their people. They attack these people in their homes with their families. And that is something that is making ordinary New Zealand citizens oodles of money to fund a far cozier retirement. And I'm sure that the three of us and everyone in this podcast don't want our money for retirement to be made by that kind of criminal activity.
One of the really shocking things to me is that it seems to have turned out that a whole bunch of shares in Palantir were bought in 2024 and 2025.
And over that period, those shares, or the value of those shares rose, I think it was 1,200%, around 1,200%, from February 2024 to October 2025. So within this explicit window of the genocide in Gaza, and in particular that escalating. And it was raised in Francesca Albanese, special rapporteur for Palestine, in her report, from an economy of occupation to an economy of genocide. And so Palantir was raised as one of the key military tech and data companies that is linked to technologies that have backed egregious war crimes, but within this kind of wider economy of genocide is one of the key companies that has profited enormously from this horrific, just unfathomable period of human extermination and suffering. And so it's terrifying that, you know, the super fund in particular and is profiting directly from these atrocities.
Because that's us profiting. Like,
it's us profiting. Yes.
It's one of those things, right? Like, and you know, I talked about it a few weeks back, 2 weeks back, at one of the marches. The intent of this kind of policy is to make us complicit, and it is to tie us directly into aggressive US imperialism in ways that make it functionally more difficult or functionally less likely for people to talk against it, or sometimes to even like disentangle themselves from the administrative burden of it. Now you can imagine some way down the line now, if this ever becomes like a serious chance of being able to get the funds out of Palantir, people saying, "Oh, but they made us so much money. That's your pension." You know, this is what it is about.
I think it's such a revealing example of how imperialism operates in relation to this, you know, divide between the global north and the global south, right? The comforts of Western liberal economies being built upon the violent dispossession of the global south. And I mean, there are so many examples for it, but yeah, this particular example and just the kind of visual nature of those shares, and how they've exponentially increased as a direct result of the genocide is absolutely terrifying. But you're right in the way that it creates this kind of dependency for the New Zealand public at large, right? Because again, this is our superannuation. It's our dependency on, how would you say it, welfare architecture of a sort, which is directly tied to the dispossession and extreme violence which is enacted upon Palestine, upon the global south at large.
And I think that amen to that totally. Our project at Awa was looking at the Palantir investment and the New Zealand super funds. That's what we're primarily talking about. But what New Zealanders should also be aware of is that our Minister of Defence made an interesting comment a couple of months ago where he said that the GCSB, so our spy agency, is leading New Zealand's interaction with Palantir, and we should be aware that Palantir are deeply involved with our GCSB, just as it is across all the Five Eyes countries. We should be aware that they've got ongoing projects with our Defence Department. They're trying to get into our Health Department. And other major institutions of the New Zealand state. And what I just say there is, this is not a drill. We if we want to be a sovereign nation, we should not be handing over all our data for our society to the United States of America's, one of its key AI companies, because that sure as hell is one way to lose your sovereignty.
Yeah, one of the things, and this is shocking to me, and maybe one of you can kind of unpack this for us a bit, is that when the Guardians, who are the people who run and make the choices about the New Zealand Super Fund, were kind of when this was brought to their attention, as potentially like not being a good idea, probably falling outside their own rules, they said that Palantir is not captured by any of the exclusion criteria, which tend to be around kind of military stuff, weapons manufacturing, serious environmental destruction, and that sort of thing. They said there are some companies excluded for making illegal products, even more illegal products like cluster munitions. But in this case, Palantir was not captured by those criteria. How and why can that be the case when you have, the CEO Alex Karp on TV pretty regularly, or like on live video, saying, "Yeah, we're gonna kill people. Like we love doing it, for America."
I mean, it's a great question. And I mean, this is only the start, right, of our campaign to effectively lobby the super fund towards divestment, because it's so blatantly obvious. I mean, it's ridiculous that that decision to invest those shares, particularly, in early 2024, was even made given the context. I will note, though, that the PSNA's High Court decision for judicial review, which was successful, and as you've already set out in your introduction, that decision is quite interesting because it wasn't an interrogation as to whether the decision of the super fund to invest in companies such as Motorola that were involved in illegal Israeli settlements, and that was the focus of PSNA's campaign, right, for further divestment. It wasn't whether that decision to invest in those companies was unlawful. It was more this inquiry into and interrogation of whether the policies that the super fund had in place at that time were lawful by way of the overriding statute. I've got it noted down here. Sorry. That's right. The New Zealand Superannuation and Retirement Income Act, because Section 58 of that Act says that the Guardians must invest the fund in a manner that is consistent with different things, different obligations, but notably avoiding prejudice to New Zealand's reputation as a responsible member of the world community. So like you've already set out, what had effectively happened over the course of several years was the super fund had slowly stripped away its own internal investment policies of key references to international human rights law and UN, global benchmark standards for ethical investment. And it was in that process of stripping away those key references that the High Court then found that the policy as it had currently stood was unlawful, because it doesn't allow the Guardians to uphold their duties in investing in a way that avoids prejudice to New Zealand's reputation as a responsible member of the world community. So the super fund Guardians, they're not taking that decision on appeal. And I think, I can't remember how long ago, but effectively they've decided that they're going to accept that court decision and they will review their policies accordingly to improve those references to, international human rights and, basic global benchmarks of ethical investment, as they should have done. Anyway, so I think the issue and the interesting thing for this campaign is, with that internal review process in order to make their internal policies lawful and in line with international human rights law, is whether that will also enable them to reconsider some of these investments, for example, in Palantir, which clearly prejudices New Zealand's reputation in relation to the egregious human rights violations that Palantir has been tied to.
And it continues a process of really trashing our reputation. Like I've several times in the past year heard people in West Asia refer to New Zealand as part of the axis of genocide, which I hope would be hurtful to the ears of any decent New Zealander, that New Zealand, because, as lots of people have pointed out, including Francesca Albanese, who you mentioned before, or Pascal Lothar, that genocide is a collective action of the collective West. And New Zealand, in multiple ways, including in investing in companies like Palantir, is actually participating in the genocide and all sorts of egregious war crimes that do terrible damage to our reputation. And I think we just want to encourage New Zealanders to actually stand up for a better New Zealand. Who are you? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? And surely it's not investing in military tech. And Alex Karp, the CEO, he mentioned that the future of hard power, and he's a great believer in hard power, that America is on a rampage and he loves it. Israel's on a rampage across the Middle East and he loves it. That's why they have board meetings in Israel to show solidarity with Israel. And as New Zealanders, we should stand up and say, we do not want to be part of this. We're better than that.
Yeah, it does seem like a really clear example of something prejudicing our reputation. I'm like, and even with the changes in policy, which I think we're in 2022, it should still not, under the current policy, you'd think that this still would be an issue. I saw that this is such weird timing, right? It's such like evil timing for this to occur. But they removed specific references to the UN Global Compact and direct links to human rights standards in 2022. And then just like, hey, cool, let's like make a whole bunch of money out of Palantir. I just don't know how they can be countenanced. It's such an absurd and evil thing to do.
Yeah, which is why it's our job to climb into them. These people aren't going to have any epiphanies. They're not going to suddenly, they're not going to have a road to Damascus. They go back to the Middle East. They're not going to have a road to Damascus moment and suddenly realize that they've gone down the wrong path in life and that they're investing in evil. So that's why it's our job as citizens to mobilize, to actually get enough people to actually apply pressure to change those policy settings. And this is a very good year to be doing it because it's election year.
Yeah, and they have divested from stuff in the past on this basis, from what I know. I don't think the judgment that saw in PSNA's favor demanded they divest, right? From Motorola or Airbnb, Expedia.
No, it didn't get to that stage. And I think PSNA's tactic, at least from what I had sort of read in that decision, was that, and the commentary sort of surrounding it, is that the revision of the policy document would naturally trigger that divestment. But that's the next step, right? And as Eugene has pointed out, can we expect these people to just randomly have a change of heart? I mean, it's, clear on everything that this is prejudicial to New Zealand's reputation. You don't necessarily need the UN Global Compact to tell you that when, the human rights violations and war crimes that it's been linked to are just so egregious. And there are other international investment funds that have been divesting from Palantir too. I think it was the Dutch pension fund, ABP, in March earlier this year had made a decision to divest its 825 million euro investment shareholding in Palantir. So again, it's this. There's a wider conversation at play.
Mm.
It's blatantly obvious where the super fund should go with this, and I do note as well too. So I've just pulled up the kind of press release that the Guardians had posted in response to the judicial review decision, and they do note that updates to the policy documents in recent years had not, however, materially changed the Guardian's actual engagement and exclusion practices. So they're kind of, defending themselves from the next step here. But again, we just have to see how this goes and make sure that we build a strategic campaign that most importantly brings public awareness along with us.
And as you said, Eugene, in an election year, right, where this is the super fund is already like looking to shape out as a potential campaign issue in regards to whether or not you're getting a pension later, for example. But to have this as a ancillary part of that, where you'll get your pension on time, but it's paid for by genocide, is I think would be really shocking to a lot of people in this country who aren't aware of that.
Yes, and one thing people can do is, as it is election year, obviously turn up at meet the candidate meetings, ask, like I'd like to see our parties, particularly those more to the left, actually come out very clearly and say they are going to instruct the Guardians that they cannot continue this terrible process of investing in the US-Israeli war machine. It's got to stop. And I think we should apply pressure, so people who are watching this, make sure you go to meet the candidates meetings, make sure you write to your MPs so that we can be, as New Zealanders have done in the past, as we have achieved changes. We did get the homosexual law reform bill, and we did get the Nuclear Free New Zealand Act. I've gone the longer title. We did stop our relationship with racist South Africa. We can do these things, but we need more of us to actually get in the game and actually, take the fight to these people.
Yeah, and I think the key word too is in reputation, right? Like, and so I guess what that captures is this, strategic opportunity to draw attention to those reputational, to that reputational damage by demonstrating in our masses how disturbing this investment is.
And
Yeah,
these people are seriously weird, by the way. All of these billionaires, yep, they're really rich. Yep, they're really powerful. They're also seriously weird dudes. All of them, Elon Musk and Alex Karp and Peter Thiel. Somebody described them the other day. They're like these, they're like teenage boys when they talk politics. They're obsessed with sci-fi. Palantir, but I'm sure most people know this. Palantir is the crystal ball. Did you know this, Kyle? The crystal ball from Lord of the Rings. Funnily enough, it was sort of the evil Sauron who was looking out across Middle Earth and conducting some of his evil business via the Palantir. How appropriate. I think they're almost like an avatar for the collective West at the moment, or the leadership of the collective West. They are not very nice people, and they're doing really evil shit. And people of conscience have to see them for what they are.
how do you think we get past the current state of things to that understanding? Because I think, and especially at the leadership or decision-making level, because I think by and large, people look at Elon Musk now or Alex Karp like ranting or Peter Thiel just looking like he does and say, wow, those are not people that I'm okay associating with. But across the West and here in Aotearoa, New Zealand as well, leadership is very happy to kind of hand wave stuff away, like, oh, we don't agree with what they're doing. Yeah, we condemn all violence in the Middle East. Winston Peters came out today, what are we, 15th of June, to say he hoped that hostilities had ceased with this latest potential deal being done. But meanwhile, we're giving this material support. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening in the background. There's a whole bunch of association in the background that isn't forefronted, that people just aren't as aware of as the plausible deniability that's regularly being presented by our politicians. How do we bridge that gap as activists or with our Anti-War Aotearoa or as just members of the public? How do we get to that point?
Oh well, I think hey, I tell you what, it's long and it's hard. Like people often come around and go, oh, but I marched against Iraq or something or other, and it didn't work out. Listen, guys, we're in a long, hard struggle here, and we're up against a very powerful, well-resourced team. So yeah, we need our Labour Party to muscle up, to really grow a backbone and have very front-footed policy. So any pressure you can apply to them, to the Greens, to all the parties have to be encouraged to take far stronger stances. And the work you're doing, Kyle, hosting a platform, getting out there and communicating, that's all part of this long struggle. We're not, it's not a quick, I often joke, I say, I'm just heading up the stairs to my office to overthrow the American empire. And unfortunately, it's not going to happen overnight. We're in a very long, hard, tough struggle. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. And mobilizing, there's been a number of anti-war protests around the country, and some of them have attracted pretty decent numbers. They've got to be bigger. The alternative media platforms, there's some terrific work going, and we've got to make it bigger, better. Something I actually believe in really strongly is the different groups have to be far better at working together, setting aside their ideological differences or whatever, and actually really focusing in on the things that unite us, and then sharing our resources to take the struggle to the bad guys.
Any thoughts from you?
Great response.
Yeah, I think
I was just thinking about it because obviously we've had such a big weekend for sport, right? And it's always amazing to me to see the ways in which, people can mobilize around sports kaupapa. And I find it, increasingly fascinating the ways in which we can just sort of rally together under, an umbrella for a particular team. But I think something more interesting to sort of expand upon from that conversation is, okay, there is this capacity to come together as we've seen, over these moments of celebration, but what could that effectively teach us as well for organizing our communities and what it means to kind of rally together, both in the joyful moments, but also in the kind of the human empathy and outrage for fellow suffering that is also required to really push back and resist things at that effective mass level.
Yeah, I think it was Kwame Ture. I think it was. I'm going to summarize right now. When he's talking about there's a difference as well between mobilizing and organizing.
Yes.
We can get people out on the streets, we can get people to a stadium to see the team. But unless you build an infrastructure, unless you build something which can take consistent, concerted action, that can train people to do this stuff, that can help people to understand what is happening, to always keep the pressure on. Because otherwise, you all turn up for one big march, or you get one win, and like, okay, cool, we did it, yay. All right, now what? As Eugene has said, like it's a big enemy, and it's going to take a long time. And I think we're at a really big inflection point in the West, and especially here in some ways around how do we turn some of this energy in the wider populace. I keep coming back to it, but something like over 80% of people in the country don't want New Zealand involvement in Iran, right?
Mm.
That's a stunning number. It isn't stopping our government from doing it. Like that's not enough. There has to be something more. There has to be further steps, and those steps have to have a destination that gets us multiple outcomes, not just a politician said something once.
Yeah, I mean, changing the policy settings of the country, that's the game. That's the real game. It's not just having a good demonstration or whatever. It's what other things we can do to change fundamental policy settings in the country. And that includes our topic tonight, Palantir and the NZ Super Fund divesting from such evil companies. Hey, you said something to pick up on, Gabriella, about joyfulness. And I'd just say to everyone, because I just know everyone who's watching this, that they're on our team. You know, I love other people to curious minds who maybe this might be more fresh to, but you should feel a joy that we're in this struggle, because I would hate to be on that other side. Just the very thought that I was indifferent to the conditions of people in the Middle East and what the West is inflicting on them. I would hate to be such a person. So I think, you know, all these people are involved in this struggle. Feel good. You know, it's draining waking up every morning and looking at what the latest evil act by Trump and co is, but my God, you're on the right side of history. So take some ihi, some wehi out of that and kick on and do some more.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got a march coming up this week to mobilize with a range of different demands. That is on June the 20th, on Saturday, noon at Aotearoa Square in Tamaki Makaurau. Are you both going to be there?
Yes, I will
Yeah,
be
I'm
there.
gonna drive up from Wellington. Wouldn't miss it.
Wonderful. So people, that's one way that people can get involved. Get some numbers out to that. I think
That was a
showing,
joint venture with Greenpeace and Anti-War
yeah,
Aotearoa.
the last episode of the podcast was with Nevo Flynn from Greenpeace talking about that and the different demands of the March for Peace. So you can go back and have a listen to that if you want to get the full picture of why and how we're doing that. What should people turning up to a march be looking for, or how can they look to connect kind of with the wider infrastructure once they've got out on the streets, have rallied with people that, you know, share their thoughts and their consideration for the global community? How do you turn that energy into, okay, now I'm going to take extra steps, I'm going to do more, I'm going to get more involved?
I think you kind of answered the question in a way. It's that they're not one-off events. You know, if it's one-off event, then it's lovely, and you get the benefit of being with people, and that's enormously valuable. I think marching, wandering down the street, make sure you talk to people you don't know, chat to people. You know, all of that's really wonderful. But as you said, Kyle, it's got to be. Okay, what's next? Who can I link up with? What organization do I really want to be part of and engage with? And you know, and all of these outfits you can reach out to, whether that's AWA or whether it's Greenpeace or whoever, and do stuff. You know, all of us make contributions in very different ways. And it's just that multiplying effect, you know, that's it. And yeah, and I think your sentiment was 100% right. It's got to be what's next. What else can we do? How else can we influence the dialogue? How can we? Oh, hey, I tell you a really interesting idea is you know, some people aren't worth talking to. You know, they're just out and out racists or fascists or whatever. Don't waste your breath on them. Don't waste your breath on them. The people I am particularly interested in talking to are the persuadables. So if you think in your friend network, your family network, wherever, you know, you might not have a platform or whatever, but you're a person who operates in society. Who are the persuadables? Who are the lapsed and the lazies? Maybe 20 years ago or something, they were involved in the struggle, and now they're sort of just focusing on family life or whatever. Who are the lapsed and lazies? Get, you know, reignite them. Who are the persuadables? So you know, and forget the rest. Forget, you know, you don't have to have fights with people who are totally opposed to your viewpoints. That can burn your brain cells up, believe me. You know, so I'd say that you know, for civilians rather than full-time activists. That's a really good thing to do, and share stuff. If you see one of your podcasts, Kyle, if you see one of Kyle's podcasts, share it, get it out there. Make sure some of these lapsed and lazies and persuadables actually get a hold of useful brain food to actually get them into the struggle.
Yeah, and I think you've already mentioned it, Eugene, but in terms of tangible next steps, I mean, even with the news today, right, and the possibility of a peace deal being on the table, Israel isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. Who knows what their next horrific war crime will be. I mean, what they're still doing to Gaza and the West Bank on an ongoing daily basis, what they're still, doing to southern Lebanon. I mean, all of that is going to continue unless we are able to put pressure on our government to divest, to withdraw all support of these, what are effectively the fascist nations of the 21st century, Israel and the United States. So none of that is going away overnight. And I think this particular campaign to divest from Palantir shares, as well as to draw wider awareness to its growing presence in our own military infrastructure, I think is super critical. And it's a tangible way that we can put our energy into a kaupapa for divestment. And you think about the recent success of BDS in dismantling the apartheid state of South Africa, and the similar kind of historical patterns and timeline that's playing out, because it is inevitable that Israel, as an illegal genocidal occupation, will fall. But that kind of material economic pressure will help generate the energy for a democratic Palestinian state to be born again. So we've just got to all hands on deck, and keep in touch with ours kaupapa, particularly in terms of the Super Fund campaign, because there'll be more mahi that's required in building that pressure for divestment.
Absolutely. And I'll link to the story, the stuff story in the summary, and I'll also link to ours Instagram page so you can keep up to date with all of that. You can go and review everything, make sure it's all on the level, and see where the next events are, what the next campaigns are. I think that's a good place to leave it. Good full circle there, Gabriella, to bring us back around. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining me, both of you, this evening.
Pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure. Paul Mario.
And thank you to our audience for listening. That's also something that's really important for this stuff to work, is for people to actually be tuning in, listening to what we have to say, taking that elsewhere, as Eugene said, talking to friends and family who may not have access to alternative media, and letting them know that it is out there, that there are people out there doing the work to find the stuff out and to try and bring the information to you. So share this episode if you get the chance. We'll be back with another episode on Wednesday, I think. And in the near future, we'll hope to have a few candidate episodes coming up as well, where we talk to different political candidates about what their parties might be up to. You might get the opportunity to see where you can pressure some of these people into taking a variety of different stances, including divesting from Palantir with New Zealand's fund. We'll catch you next time.
Beat down the gates, you did it again, and invite to the party. Golden dawn was just